when he does all the voices of the different dads or whatever, it just every time.
How dare you speak to me that way? Yeah, he's so good. He's so good.
Yeah, I was definitely not as cool as Ferris in high school at all.
No.
Whoa, don't agree so fast, buddy. You don't know me. Today, we are doing our first ever fan request. So, let's be honest. Fan is maybe a little much. It's a family member. My uncle had requested. He really wanted to hear us talk about this movie. And so I was like, hey, let's just slot it in. We can put it in. So hopefully, Pete, you get to enjoy this and we make it worth your while. Or we just trash it completely and you hate us and stop listening to us. So one of the two. It's either going to go either way. So there will be no middle ground. So today, Ben, we're going to be talking about the 1986 John Hughes film, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Oh, a classic.
A classic
of all 80s classics.
It's
86 was a good year.
Yeah.
86 was a fantastic year because you got Ferris Bueller's Day Off and you also got Top Gun in the same year.
Yep.
And then I know there's some other movies I'm forgetting too. The 86 was a nice year for movies.
Yeah.
And don't listen to Quentin Tarantino trash the 1980s. He's wrong. He's wrong. I love Tarantino, but when he says the 80s were a bad decade for movies, I could not disagree more. They're just different. It's just different. Yeah. But no, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of my absolute favorite films.
Is it your favorite John Hughes film? Is it your favorite John Hughes film then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And John Hughes, God rest his soul, was a national treasure for filmmaking in the 80s and then even into the early 90s. And he didn't make that many movies. But when he did,
directed only like 12 or 14. Maybe that's given him some.
He wrote more.
Yeah.
But this is absolutely my favorite John Hughes film. And I saw this early. I probably saw this younger than I probably should have. But let's be honest, there isn't that much in it. Like it's not like a scathing movie. It's not full of a bunch of nudity or anything like that. It's
none.
And John Hughes movies rarely were. But this thing was a blast. I mean, who didn't want to be Ferris Bueller? I mean, if I created a list of coolest characters in cinema, Ferris is probably easily top 5.
Yeah.
As far as just cool. But I will say, I'm going to say this early on in our discussion. This movie should not be called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It shouldn't.
By the very definition of Ferris Bueller's Day Out, maybe?
No. This should be called Cameron Frye's Day Off.
Ooh.
Because it's his journey. Ferris is the vehicle, but Ferris Bueller doesn't have an arc. Ferris Bueller is the same guy at the beginning of the movie, and he's the same guy at the end of the movie. He doesn't change.
He always wins.
Cameron Frye changes. Cameron Frye has the character arc of this movie. Matthew Broderick as Ferris Bueller is more of a sage, kind of dragging Cameron Frye through this to become a different version of himself. So like, and that goes back into the whole film theory stuff of the hero's journey. And this movie follows that, but it's the journey of Cameron Frye. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not suggesting changing the title of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, right? Like that, but I'm saying the main journey of the character that I probably relate more to is Cameron.
Yeah, I was definitely not as cool as Ferris in high school at all.
No.
Whoa, don't agree so fast, buddy. You don't know me.
No, I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me. No, I've never been too cool for school.
Man, so I ended up actually rewatching this recently, like today. Like I actually rewatched it. I'm going to tell you, it holds up. Like, it was still an enjoyable film. And it was a lot of fun to see all of the 80s tech that was like considered high tech, and that like the computers, the hacking, well, I mean, kind of hacking, he does a little bit of it. All the telephones, it was just a fun little throwback of like, oh my goodness, this is, I remember all these things. I mean, like when he's got the synthesizer and he puts a 5 1/4 inch floppy disk in it to play the cough sounds, and I was like, oh my goodness, we used to have to do that. Now it's all USB. But it's just an enjoyable film. Just it doesn't do anything, I would say, anything crazy. Like, it doesn't try to be anything more than what it is. So
no, but it's such a fixture now of kind of our romanticized vision of what the 1980s were, with the Ferrari, the California Ferrari,
the GT, something.
and the attire, the wardrobe, and just all of it, and then in many ways it's a love letter to Chicago. Yeah, I mean, it just with they go to the Cubs game, they go to the museum. Thinking back on this movie, it makes me realize, like, if you made this movie now, the main characters would just have their heads buried in their cell phones the whole time.
Instead of going to all
they'd
these
be
places.
At the Cubs game and looking down.
Taking pictures.
Yeah.
Trying to get that right angle, just that. How do I get all nine players?
We were
with
better.
my face?
We were better without the smartphone. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna use this as a pulpit for that. We were absolutely better without smartphones. And Ferris Bueller, go watch Ferris Bueller. That's how teenagers should be. I was fortunate because I was kind of the last generation. I didn't get a cell phone till college, and it wasn't a smartphone. And it was only for emergencies. But I mean, it harkens back to such a different time, a different era. And it does. It romanticizes the 80s. The 80s weren't perfect. Well, there's a lot of...
And you're especially looking at a, more upper middle class to rich 80s family.
Ferris was loaded. Like,
yeah.
Absolutely.
He's handing out cash left and right.
So was Cameron. Yeah. So is Cameron. Remember Cameron's house?
Oh yeah, out in the middle of the woods, but they were both like a garage.
They were both upper. They weren't middle class. It was like upper crust.
So majority of people probably couldn't, experience the 80s like they experienced the 80s, but definitely romanticized of this is what it could have been had you had money.
It's funny. This movie actually gets quoted at my work. The area I work in, it's me and it's another videographer, and then it's 2 graphic designers with some other experience in like audio and motion graphics. So it's 4 of us, and we quote a ton of movies. And this one gets quoted quite a bit. It seems like 9 times gets quoted a lot. And then the other one is he candidate, so wing better. So super quotable movie.
Yeah.
I will say, sadly, Jeffrey Jones as Principal Rooney, like he did some really bad stuff, the actor did. And so it's left kind of his star has a stain on it, but he's so damn good in this.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Like, he's so good. I mean, he's as equally good as the antagonist as Matthew Broderick is as Ferris, as the protagonist. Like, he's his perfect counterpoint in every way. Mm-hmm. And the movie's nowhere near as fun if he wasn't Rooney. So yeah, this is as much fun as you'll have watching a movie. Like, yeah. I don't think I've ever created that list, right? I probably should. Like, most fun movies, and that's kind of a generic
term, but
way to define them. But this movie's near the top. This thing I just have a smile on my face through most of it. And yeah, Alan, it's Cameron Frye's journey. Alan Ruck is fantastic.
It's fantastic, Adam. When he does all the voices of the different dads or whatever, just every time.
How dare you speak to me that way? He's so good. He's so good. When I watch it, I kind of almost feel bad for both Ruck and Broderick because they just never, they've had nice careers. It's like they kind of peaked with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It was lightning in a bottle. Like they didn't ever really reach those heights again. Yeah. And
Matthew had a good career up to then, but I definitely I think you're right. He peaked because he was War Games beforehand. But early 2000s he did Godzilla, which was absolutely terrible. I could not see him in the role.
He's really good in Cable Guy opposite Jim Carrey. He plays the straight man really well. And then Godzilla was a little later and that really hurt his career.
Yeah.
And then Ruck has had more of a career in television, and they both work. So from that standpoint, like they're not, and I'm not saying they're failures. I'm just saying it's tough to come to terms, I think, with peaking that early and then kind of chasing the success and wondering, man, am I ever going to get attached to a better project than this? Is this going to be it?
Yeah.
And so far that seems to be the case. But what a beautiful movie. What a beautiful movie.
Though after rewatching it, I had forgotten how long he spends in his house. Like it's like almost 40 minutes of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Ferris doesn't leave his house. Like, it's like 45.
Which is a credit to Hughes to make that interesting.
Yeah. Doing all the stuff around, obviously he's setting up all the pieces for things and you have conversations with, Cameron via phone and those kind of stuff, but to kind of build that up, which is good, but it never felt slow, but it feels like he gets right out and into the car and into Chicago like that. But no, it's like most of the movie is him at home, or him in his neighborhood.
And I think what makes it work is, he breaks the fourth wall
a lot. Yeah.
He's talking to you. He's talking to the camera almost immediately and when he's in the house.
Yeah.
And this is the first, thinking back, this has got to be the first movie I ever saw that did that broke the fourth wall, where I had the main character actually talking to me. And so, and they pepper that in throughout. So you just feel like this fourth party member to Ferris, Cameron, and Sloane that gets to be with them.
Go on a ride with them. Yep.
Yeah. And it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Yeah. And then,
and hilarity ensues. So
yeah. And obviously you got Ben Stein,
Oh, fun fact about that.
Bueller,
So the Bueller part, the role attendance was supposedly his only dialogue. The rest of the dialogue was John Hughes had asked Ben Stein, just do an economics presentation, because he was a teacher at the time as well, or a professor. He's just like, just do an economics thing and treat it like a regular class, but just do it, in that tone. And obviously it works, because it is like, I'm watching it now. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. When I read that, I was like, oh, that's also hilarious. That it's a real lecture.
Yeah. Everybody falling asleep and oh yeah. It's great. You got that nice cameo at the end with Charlie Sheen.
Yep. Just
playing
just
a much closer version to himself than we ever imagined.
We thought he was playing out of type, and
thought he was out of type, and no, that's
just
not
Charlie.
The case.
He was on a bender, came in. John Hughes was like, "Hey, here you go."
It feels like a snapshot in time for me. I think that's one of the things that works so well. And I don't know I don't think that was the intent, right? I think they're just trying to tell the story of these teenagers, but the more time that's passed, the nostalgia factor just seems to grow for me, right? It's almost even the story's sort of in the background now, and it's more like you said. It's just this awesome snapshot into mid 1980s Americana.
Yeah,
and it's still funny. I don't think I ever thought it was like knockdown, drag out hilarious. But it's just a funny movie, and then it's highly quotable. And I think comedies need to be really quotable, because half the fun is reliving moments with your friends, or in my case, friends and coworkers,
and just
weaving. We just have a bad habit of weaving cinematic dialogue into everyday conversation. I'm sort of just a functioning robot in that regard. And it's not even, I mean, God bless my wife for putting up with it. It's not something I actively try to do,
but it comes out.
Sort of, it's the way my brain is wired from seeing so many of these movies. But yeah, Ferris Bueller's part of that fixture, you know?
Yeah. Again, I think you said it best. It's a good fun. I mean, I wouldn't call it a light comedy, but it's definitely much more almost like an adventure film with some comedy in it, as opposed to just like a straight up comedy and things. So
yeah, and then it gets serious at the end. It really does. Like the comedy melts away, and usually I get frustrated when movies do that. Right now, I'll cite a movie. The first half of Wedding Crashers is absolutely hysterical, but the back quarter is just a paint by numbers romance film, and the comedy is gone. It's like almost devoid of comedy at that point. This movie waits to the very, very end to do that. Yeah. What's that?
Except for Will Ferrell thrown in that one.
Yeah, you get that peppered in, but that after that, it's yeah. But this movie, they really wait till the very, very end to do that, to turn it into I wouldn't even call it a drama. It's just, it's very coming of age. And and Cameron does, he goes from boy to man. Like he really does. He finally stands up for himself. Is like, yeah, I don't care. We're going to talk about this. He loves this car more than me. He probably loves this car more than he loves his wife. And I'm going to finally confront the guy on this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And it's a great moment. And yeah, that harkens back to why I think this is easily could be called Cameron Frye's Day Off, but you don't market a movie by doing that.
No. No one wants to be Cameron. Everyone wants to be Ferris.
Yeah, sure. Everybody wants to be Ferris. But the reality is most of us are Cameron. Mm-hmm. That's why the movie resonates with me so much, you know? And then he has this really poignant conversation with Sloane by the pool where he's just like, hey, this is kind of it for us. Like, we're not going to go to the same colleges. We're not going to go to the same schools. And so, but his time with Ferris was of value because Ferris was the driving influence to become a man, to finally man up and be like, I'm going to take control of my life. The path of my life's going to take. I'm not going to lay here and be a victim. So the message is awesome. Like it's this fabulous life message wrapped in the trappings of comedy and rambunctiousness and that sick Ferrari that's actually a piece of crap that they could barely get to run.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't really
just a copy car. It wasn't real. Yeah, no, it was built off of it was on a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah, it was like fiberglass or something,
or Beetle chassis, and Ruck has said that the damn thing would hardly ever start. Like it cut off mid scene and stuff. Yeah, it was a terrible car to drive, but for the purposes of the movie, it's definitely one of those iconic movie cars for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and definitely scenes with the parking garage attendants taking it out for a joyride. That was
it's so great.
Scary.
It's so great.
This is why I drive crap cars. So I don't. If I give them off the valets, they're never going to take it anywhere because they're like, this thing is a piece of junk.
Yeah. Remind me, what's the music that plays when they make that big jump in it?
Isn't it? Oh my goodness! I just watched it. You should think. I think it's the Space Odyssey 2001 stuff. That goes.
Yeah, you're right. Like, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It is
because they're basically airborne at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good time.
It would make me sad if somebody's listening to this that had never seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I'm sure that's a distinct possibility.
We're outside the statute of limitations of spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this thing's 37 years old.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to kind of come to terms with that this movie's almost 40 years old. But if you're much younger and you want to see what what 80s kind of a glorified version of what 80s teens were up to. John Hughes, almost half his catalog is that.
Yeah, I think he wanted to relive his high school years or kind of revisit that time period. I think he was one of those who definitely kind of was nostalgic for all of that time period of being in high school. I mean, you have this, and then I would also say the flip side of that coin is like Breakfast Club, where you have to deal with a lot more of the, dregs is not the right word, but the underbelly sometimes of high school and things of that sort.
You get the full spectrum of cliques and groups and social and economic classes in Breakfast Club. That's its strength. You're not going to get that with Ferris. Like we've said, they're basically middle to upper middle class, and
easily.
But
I mean, just look all the gear that he's got. The computer, the synthesizer.
And when I was a kid, I loved his whole rig for the mannequin in the bed. Yeah. I just thought that was genius.
The stereo alone was expensive.
I knew in the back of my mind that it would never work for me to skip school.
No.
Oh, and
skipped school once I got caught.
And his parents, the actor and actress that plays his parents are so good. They're so good.
So trusting of Ferris, so loving of Ferris.
And I loved the because I've seen it play out with friends of mine growing up, but I loved the whole 2-tier system of parenting that exists with how they treat Ferris versus how they treat his sister.
Yep.
Because I had that growing up, except it was flip-flopped. I had a friend growing up, and his sister could get away with anything, and she was like 2 or 3 years younger, and his mom was just on him like white on rice, and he couldn't get away with anything. And so that the movie, that aspect totally reminds me. That's like, that's true. That's true to life. The whole dual system of the younger child that just can get away with murder, and then the expectations are greater for the older child. Yeah. And Jennifer Grey is great.
Yeah.
Because
this is and this is before she does Dirty Dancing too. So
is it before? Yeah, it's before Dirty Dancing.
It's before, before Dirty Dancing.
Yeah,
man.
So the cast is kind of underratedly great. Like there's not anybody that really overwhelms anybody else, but it's an ensemble piece, and it's
and I love solid. Rooney's secretary. Like
she
steals the scenes when she's in there. So she's pulling all the pencils out of her hair.
Yeah, there's some good sight gags and stuff in this.
Yeah. It's a fun movie. Go see it if you haven't seen it, or if you haven't watched it for a while. It still holds up. I mean, I literally just watched it. It still holds up. It's still fun to watch.
Yeah, and I guess I want to say to folks listening, like, I can be a film snob, but I'm not really a film snob, because I adore movies like this. Like, I think this is every bit as good as something really serious that took home a bunch of Academy Awards. Like, it is. Because for me, it's not always the content, it's the execution. Right? And Ferris Bueller, the story, and the dialogue's all really good. The dialogue's witty, and and John Hughes always wrote really believable, fun, witty dialogue. But the story itself isn't anything earth-shattering, but the execution of this is just on point.
Yeah.
And Ferris Bueller's great. Ferris Bueller's The Office, great film. It is. I put it up against anything. Like it's in the top upper tier of 80s cinema with me. Like, for what it is, like, do I think it's a better movie than Raiders of the Lost Ark? No. But it's not light years behind it. It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of film.
Well, and I will say, especially as an actor, we always look down on comedy. We think it's easy. We think this is why it doesn't win Best Picture and stuff like that. Doing that dramatic stuff is so much more difficult to get it. I find, and I know talking to a lot of actors, doing the dramatic stuff is cake. trying to get comedy that lands right, that's the difficult part. Like, that is hard to do because, I mean, you got to get the timing right. You got to get the sentence structure right. You've got to get so much more right. Where, I mean, for drama, like, I can look sad and then I just say some stuff, you know, or I can just look angry and say some stuff. It's why, like, I really dislike that Leo got his Oscar for The Revenant, because basically he was in pain and angry the entire time. That emotion doesn't really, not that much different. Like, when I'm in pain and I'm angry, it's going to be pretty close. So he doesn't have that range. Whereas, like, you know, with comedy, you do have to kind of hit those things. You do have to try harder, and sometimes it doesn't land. So it's a lot harder to get a good comedy that hits a lot of people than it is to get a drama that hits a lot of people, in my opinion.
And this one does. This one hit a large swath of the audience. Yeah. It's special. It's special because it is. It's just this wonderful snapshot in time. It's something I do like to go back and watch. And
a gem from the 80s. Probably not on the top 100 list either of AFI.
No, and it's not gonna get like a Criterion collection, right? Like they're not gonna add Ferris Bueller's Day Off to the Criterion, right? That's just not that kind of movie. But that doesn't mean it's not a special film.
No,
because it is. Well, I thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Cinema A to B. We're rolling right along, dropping episodes every Monday.
Every Monday. Catch us on our YouTube site or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're there. That's the audio only, but the only video is on YouTube. So at Cinema A to B. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, also at Cinema A to B. Come join the conversation, like our stuff, subscribe to our stuff, you know, do all that fun stuff that you're supposed to do to something that you listen to.
Yes. Yeah. We love comments on, on Instagram, Facebook, and especially on YouTube. If you catch us on YouTube, if you listen audio only, please leave us a review.
Please.
And
if it's good, if it's bad, if you don't like it, don't, you know.
Only pitching the 5-star reviews, right? Like don't give us a 1. You know, thanks everybody for listening. We will catch you on Mondays.
All right.
Appreciate you.